Auckland, 100.6 FM.
Radio Live Drive
With Andrew Patterson.
25 minutes after 3, we'll ask someone to smash up a robot and you might be surprised at their reaction. Some people, actually, it seems, are reluctant to undress in front of a robot because they consider it being somewhat alive. Well, that's the view of my next guest, Dr. Christopher Bartneck, a University of Canterbury computer scientist, who's been at the forefront of human-robot interaction research for more than 10 years in New Zealand and overseas. And he joins us now. Christopher, good afternoon.
Hello, Andrew. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. All right, join us. Just tell us a little bit more here about how you went about this study and whether or not these results are the ones that you expected.
Well, the start of the study was the idea that many robots that we have these days exhibit behaviors and characteristics that humans are otherwise only familiar with in other humans and other animals. So they have intentional behavior, they talk, they act, and so forth. So they act as if they are alive, but of course rationally we know that they're just machines, so no, they're not really alive. So we're in this in-between state that is very difficult for humans. So we set out to study this perception of life-likeness or human-likeness. And the experiments that we did usually go around trying to understand and being able to measure this phenomena. So in one of the studies, we, for example, tried to see whether the hesitation to end a robot would actually be an indicator for anthropomorphism. So in these experiments, we essentially let people interact with the robot for a certain amount of time, and then we asked them to terminate the robot, and people were indeed quite hesitant. They would essentially prolong this procedure of actually going about it, and the more intelligent the robot has been, the more reluctant the humans were.
So you would actually say that during that period they effectively bonded with the robot?
Well, yes. Well, this is not unusual. I mean, if you think back about the Tamagotchi craze that we had a couple of years ago, it is not uncommon that people bond with technology. It is an overall, people feel very strongly about their laptops, see how angry they get when they lose it or it breaks.
Yeah, good point, yeah.
So that is not so uncommon. The new aspect here is that with these new type of robots that we have, they more resemble human beings, and also they are not just machines because, in the sense of a computer, because they actually have the ability to act within the physical world. They can touch you, they can walk around, and so forth. This is something that we're not so familiar with computers doing. So, yeah, that is a new aspect on that.
And we've seen that aspect also come into the new iPhones, can't it, where effectively you can ask it a question and it will give you an answer.
Yes, indeed. This is sort of like the typical speech and artificial intelligence kind of system. But of course, an iPhone doesn't have any arms and legs. It doesn't really do anything other than communicating with you. So that essentially it's still more of a computer than a robot. But indeed, look at how much distance people put between themselves and the iPhone. Not very much. They keep it close at all times, even in their bed. So
yeah, which is amazing. And of course, we know that robotic technology is moving very quickly now. Particularly the Japanese and so forth have become. I suppose have almost got robots to this point that they are getting pretty close to lifelike.
Well, yeah, on the area of research prototypes, yes, we have some androids they also worked with, and they get very close. This is always in incremental steps, of course. Before that, we had, for example, in an amusement park, you had autonomous machine with kind of like a form of puppeteering. And the field of puppeteering itself, of course, is there for hundreds of years. So in that sense, these are incremental steps, and we can make them human-like if we want to. It's not necessarily a good idea because the more human-like we make them, also the expectations are raised. So if it looks like human, you actually expect that it understands and is able to argue in the same way a human does. And that, of course, is extremely difficult, simply because of the limitations of artificial intelligence that we're still constrained about. So in that sense, here at the HIT Lab New Zealand, we we try to focus not so much on the problem of artificial intelligence in terms of giving robots lots of knowledge and argumentation and so forth, but more on the social behavior that they actually have and what effect that has on users. So, for example, we have here a master's program on human interface technology, and our students here use this type of robots to conduct experiments and to do new implementations. One of our students now was very smart. He's working on a robot that can give you a massage. This is something your computer can't do, really, because it doesn't have the ability to function in a physical world.
Yeah.
But robots can do that, and a massage just feels so much better if somebody else does it than when you do it yourself. So in that sense, that's a very nice application scenario there.
All right, and just finally, where could you see this research being taken in the future? Have you got any ideas what you'd like your next project to focus around?
Well, we actually just started a couple of studies now, and we're looking at reciprocity and also at, in general, anthropomorphism to be able to get a better grip on it, so that robots cannot do anything about their body. They cannot lose any weight if they want to, or they cannot put any makeup on. I mean, they really don't do that. But what they can do is that they can change their behavior in the same way that I, for example, can change my behavior when I talk to kids. Robots should also be able to adapt their behavior to the person they're communicating with. So this kind of adaptivity of being more or less anthropomorphic depending on the person you're talking to or interacting with is something that we're trying to achieve here.
What about mood swings? I mean, would it have good days and bad days?
Well, yeah, you can do that. I mean, again, as soon as you start to mimic human behavior, so if they act in this framework, you make it easier for humans to understand them in a way, because we can just, we are trained for so many years to interact with other humans that we can then use this knowledge to also, understand and interact with robots. I mean, it doesn't make necessarily sense. I mean, it doesn't necessarily make sense for a robot to have emotions or moods, but as a form of communication, it can be successful. So, for example, if it would be sad or it would show behavior of sadness, then we would understand, like, oh, something is wrong. I have to do something, or I have to understand what is going wrong, simply by acting sad. I mean, he could have just said, oh, something's broken, or this and this didn't work. He could just do it straight out. But by being sad, he elicits this kind of reaction from humans. So, yeah, it's a tool of communication, really. Fascinating, and of course, it could ultimately be mirroring our own behaviour back to us as well, too. Thanks for joining us. Speaking Dr. Christoph Bartneck, a senior lecturer at the University of Canterbury and the Director of Postgraduate Studies at HitLab in New Zealand. 27 minutes to 4 at Radio Live.